Hello everyone, welcome to this very quick discussion on the first unit of paper 1, Sociology Optional, Sociology, the discipline. So this is modernity and social changes in Europe and the emergence of sociology. That's the first subunit of this particular unit. Let's quickly look at intellectual factors that led to the emergence of sociology. Now, this is an important theme that we have in the PYQs. For example, if you look at some of the PYQs in the recent past, what aspects of enlightenment do you think paved way for the emergence of sociology? 2022, 20 marker. How did the intellectual forces lead to the emergence of sociology? 2020, 10 marker. Discuss the historical antecedents of the emergence of sociology as a discipline. How had enlightenment contributed to the emergence of sociology? Now, these are the questions that we have. Now, here you have an important value addition. So this is what we'll do. We'll try and wrap up the unit as quickly as we can in the light of some value addition. Quick pointers that will help you a great deal in terms of how to score better. So T.B. Baltimore, we are aware of this particular work, Sociology, A Guide to Problems in Literature, and he talks about 4 factors: political philosophy, philosophy of history, biological theories of evolution, and movements for social and political reform. This is straight away intellectual factors. Let's go further. Now, in addition to Baltimore, of course, we have to refer to enlightenment because enlightenment is the ultimate reference. Enlightenment actually is the broad movement within which all these 4 can always be referred to. So we can mention major strides and advances. So enlightenment, we can always mention when we're talking about intellectual factors. Major strides and advances in science. So all kinds of developments that were taking place as a result of scientific temper, reasoning, etc. And then we can also bring in feminism. So this is your overall intellectual factors. You straight away borrow from T.B. Baltimore, and of course you refer to enlightenment, you refer to growth and a certain kind of major advancement in the domain of science, and then feminism. Moving forward, let's look at some sociological notes. What are the possibilities of these notes, as we say? For example, if we are talking about something like modernity, enlightenment, French Revolution, Industrial Revolution, because this has also been asked. So if we are looking at sociological note on modernity, how do we go forward? So simply put, we start with this definition. Modernity is primarily looked at from the vantage point of social change, and it's understood as social conditions and processes as a consequence of enlightenment. So that's your starting point. Then you can always have an authentic definition. Penguin Dictionary says, Penguin Dictionary of Sociology, modernity is a term describing the particular attributes of modern societies. So that's your starting point. If you're writing a sociological note on modernity, this is how you can always start. What else? If we have to think about modernity with reference to pioneers of sociology, the great thinkers of the 19th century, well, you have all the examples. For example, Marx, looking at modernity in terms of change in economic systems. We know very well mode of production thesis, right? From feudalism to capitalism. So, and also change in organization of work or organization of labor from feudalism to capitalism. Then you have Durkheim, looking at modernity in terms of changes in nature of solidarity. We know very well from mechanical to organic. Then we have Weber, looking at modernity in terms of shifts in authority structures from traditional to legal rational. So these are 3 great thinkers of sociology that you have if you want to refer to modernity. Additional value, value added reference. In Making Sense of Modernity, which is Anthony Giddens' very famous work, he points out these 4 things. Idea of the world as open to transformation, industrial production, and some kind of a market economy, nation state and mass democracy, a society that lives in the future rather than the past. So these are core pointers that you can always use when we are talking about modernity, a sociological note on modernity. You might also require some critical pointers to conclude the right way. Here you can say Ashish Nandi, a great political psychologist from India, in his celebrated work, The Intimate Enemy, Ashish Nandi points out that modernity cannot live with a limited social role for it, meaning modernity has this tremendous zeal to control, to dominate, etc. So that is something that's important. Then we have T.K. Uman. You have sociologists like Yoginder Singh, you have sociologists like T.K. Uman, and you have sociologists like Avijit Pathak, who urge their readers to recognize the peculiarity of modernities, meaning they say modernity in different contexts actually exhibits itself in different ways. So you have modernities in different regions of the world. So that is something that we'll have to think about. What else? If we go forward, we have enlightenment. Another possible short note on enlightenment. How do we go forward with this? Now, these are the questions. What aspects of enlightenment do you think paved the way for emergence of sociology? Elaborate, right? How had enlightenment contributed to the emergence of sociology? These are previous year questions. What do we have for them? Here, again, you look at a very, very important sociological definition. Blackwell Dictionary of Sociology. If there is a short note on enlightenment, you can just use it without thinking even once in the introduction itself. This is a very powerful introduction material. You simply write, Blackwell Dictionary of Sociology says, enlightenment principally rested on the assumption that the understanding based on reason and science, reason experience in the form of science was superior to that based on religion. Simple. So what does enlightenment do? Brings about a new conception of the human world, brings about a new conception of the human being, brings about a new conception of the problems faced by the human world. Refers to a broader shift towards secularism, republicanism, individualism, humanism, etc., etc. So that's your enlightenment. What else is there? You have some other pointers as well. It linked reason with freedom and autonomy. Then we have Immanuel Kant's very important reference, dare to think, how man does away with his self-caused immaturity by daring to think. Criticism, because of course you have to conclude on a completely different opposite note. So dialectic of enlightenment is a work. Adorno and Horkheimer point out that enlightenment itself had regressed into a myth. It became a totalitarian disaster. Then we have postmodernists like Lyotard and Derrida, who point out that enlightenment's insistence that progress can only be done or progress can only be understood in a specific way is problematic, because there are different societies that have progressed in different ways. Enlightenment need not be the only route of progress. But you have Habermas, who says that don't worry, don't criticize enlightenment that much, because enlightened modernity or enlightenment modernity is an unfinished project. So this is a complete note, a sociological note, just in case, in the intellectual factors. Let's move further. Sociological note on the French Revolution. Important stuff. So again, we straight away go back to these thinkers. Durkheim, in this famous work, The Principles of 1789 in Sociology, he points out two important things. The French Revolution is to be understood as a period of great collective effervescence, which is understood as release of collective energy, right? We know this. Playing an integral role in social change. So Durkheim is talking about French Revolution in terms of collective effervescence, its role in bringing about an extraordinary social change. The second point that he points out, he makes, is the French Revolution is an instance, an event wherein one can find the first moments of collective effervescence. It marks the beginning of the cult of the individual. That's an important phrase. What is Marx saying? Marx points out that the French Revolution has emancipated the people only politically and not truly, not wholly. This is something that Marx points out in his famous work on the Jewish question. Sociological note on Industrial Revolution. Can we have some sociological pointers here? Straight away definitions. Friedrich Engels, I'm sure you have heard of this name when we discuss Marxist perspective on family. Engels is there. This famous work, The Condition of the Working Class in England, he says the Industrial Revolution began in the second half of the 18th century and marks the beginning of the history of the proletariat. Interesting. Then we have Henry Heller. This is also a definition. You can always take a note of it. Industrial revolution was coined in the first decade of the 19th century to refer to something that was already happening. So the mechanization, concentration of manufacturing, etc. Some of the important pointers: how industrial revolution brings about some very, very critical, crucial changes. Reorganization of labor, emergence of a new class composition, urbanization and emergence of industrial cities, and lastly, mechanization and its effects on life, the large-scale changes that it brings about. Thinkers' reference in relation to industrial revolution. Well, Marx in Capital Volume 1 says the Industrial Revolution facilitated the coming in of alienation. I'm sure we know this. Alienation is something that is strictly related to, or that is very much particular about capitalism. Alienation is not to be found in feudalism, in slavery, etc., etc. So it says alienation and distance the masses from achieving self-realization. That is Karl Marx. Weber points out in Economy and Society, Industrial Revolution led to the rationalization of the human world, which would eventually affect human beings' happiness, agency, etc. Durkheim in Division of Labor points out, Industrial Revolution marked the beginning of weakening of social solidarity, a sense of community. So Industrial Revolution leads to this shift from mechanical solidarity to organic solidarity. Parsons famously points out, the process of industrialization led to huge changes in both the structure and the role of the family. So Parsons points out that how the nuclear family becomes the ideal family structure type as a result of industrialization. So these